Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this first lecture of the CI for this term. I'm Joseph Lam, Director of the Confucius Institute, and I have the honor to say a few words to introduce our speaker and then introduce a series of events of the Confucius Institute, the Chinese Arts and Cultural Festival. First, let me tell you that today's talk is a very unique talk on world music as practiced and theorized in China. Now, this is very new and late development because world music is really originally a Western concept, but China, because it's really fast becoming a very modern and postmodern society, so it has picked up this word, but it's applying in a way that is Chinese. So by understanding what world music is in China, you really can know what China is. China is no longer your old country. China is a very new, very complex and maybe a little bit not coordinated country. So from our speaker's talk, you will hear the new sounds, the new beats of China. Now, Mr. Mu Qian, our speaker today, is one of the very interesting young scholar, writer, and art curator in China. I just got to know him about a year ago now, summer, yeah. And I'm very impressed by his knowledge because he's hands-on. He has produced quite a few of world music festivals in China. And these are big things. It's not just 100 people or 200 people like what CI does. His is mega, probably 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. So that is how music is happening in China. Think of Woodstock in some sense, So, and I just learned that he is going to pursue his academic side a little bit more, so he will be going to SOAS and get his PhD there. So Peterson will be Dr. Mu Qian, but actually I don't think he needs the degree, but sometimes it's nice to have a degree. So that's Professor, not Professor yet, in a few minutes, but Mr. Mu Qian at this point, and I'm sure you enjoy his lecture with illustrations, sound clips, and interesting speaker. And Mu Qian is, of course, a very nice speaker. Now, let me quickly go to introduce the events in next week because the Confucius Institute has prepared a really fascinating program of Chinese Arts and Culture Festival for you. You have this flyer outside. Please take a copy and remind yourself what is happening. First, we have a film festival for the next 3 or 4 more weeks. Every Wednesday, we have a free movie of the latest most popular movie of Chinese movie shown in the Michigan theaters at 7. Just go there and enjoy it. And tonight we're doing American Dreams, about 3 Chinese people thinking American and making it big in Beijing. So it's a lot of fun. Now that is on the popular side. But right now happening in the work gallery on State Street of the gallery of our STEM School of Arts and Science, we are presenting fantastic digital art exhibition by Pan Gonghai, one of the most fascinating and stimulating artists, multimedia artists of China and the world right now. So I urge every one of you to go there and spend 30 minutes seeing this fantastic digital art, making technology and traditional water painting. So I'm sure if you go there, you will engage the latest of Chinese art, how West and East, past and old time and new time merge together. It's really an eye-opening experience. I was there and I was totally impressed. Then we have a couple of lectures and concerts. Lectures, I would let it by, you read it. But the concerts you have to miss. You cannot miss. And next Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, I think, yeah, we have prepared a carry-on concert. There's no concert hall, but you just go close to the Berlin Tower and you will hear carry-on music. The special part of it is, I have flown in one of the top carry-onists of the world to play Chinese Confucian ritual music from 14th century on the Michigan carry-on. So it's very unique music. I can assure you, you can never hear it anywhere else. So if you want to hear the latest rendition of Confucian ritual music that Emperor Taizu proclaimed in 1398, you can hear that. Okay, and then on September 26th, we have a very interesting concert. I have invited a troupe of Shanghai composers and musicians to come to Ann Arbor just to play their latest imaginary musical work of Tang Dynasty music. So it's again a mix of the latest and the oldest. So that concert should not be missed. And then the next day, which is the Confucius Institute Day, just to show that how hip this Confucius Institute is. And we will have a concert of Chinese, what they call Chinese folk and American folk and Chinese bluegrass concert. Again, these are fascinating new concerts that you can never find anywhere. So don't you feel lucky to be a part of Ann Arbor, Michigan? So that's what we want, and so please enjoy the movies, the concerts, the art exhibition, and of course you feel up to it, go to the lectures too. So without further ado, Mr. Mu Qian.
Hello. Good afternoon. Is the microphone working? I'm very honored to be here today to give this talk and share with you some of my thoughts on world music in China. Thank you, University of Michigan and the Confucius Institute and Professor Joseph Lam for giving me this opportunity to be here and give my talk at this very prestigious university. And as Joseph just introduced, here you have a lot of very interesting programs. I really wish I can stay longer to see some of the concerts because they are also very, very related to my interest. So I'm for this talk, I'm mainly interested in the so-called world music in China, which is something quite new. It's a new phenomenon, and thank you all of you for coming, and I'm glad to see a lot of Chinese people in the audience. Maybe I can switch to Chinese.
Yes.
No. Just a few days ago, I was in Chicago, and I went to see the Chicago World Music Festival. And my research is based mostly on my experience in China and in Europe, because I produced some concerts and festivals in China, but also I worked as a manager, and I brought some groups from China to perform at world music festivals in Europe. So that's what I'm experiencing. But since I came to the United States, I found that the term world music is not used as much here as in Europe, and also maybe there is some slight difference in the understanding of the term here. So I'm very interested to learn more about that, and I hope you can also teach me about the meaning of the term here. So let's firstly have a quick review of the history of the term world music. The term has been credited to ethnomusicologist Robert E. Brown, who coined it in the early 1960s at Wesleyan University where he founded the World Music Program to enhance the process of learning. He invited more than a dozen visiting performers from Africa and Asia and began a world music concert series. It is noteworthy that the terms world music and ethnomusicology appeared around the same time, and at the beginning they both focused on non-Western music. I think here what Professor Brown referred to as world music means mainly music from all around the world. And since in the United States, Western music is already known, so what he did was to invite musicians from mostly outside of the Western countries to perform and display their traditions. But the term world music has also is also used by the music industry, and that is something I'm going to focus on. In the music industry, world music became current in the 1980s as a marketing concept to refer to various kinds of non-Western music and hybrids of Western and non-Western music. In 1987, a group of people in the UK music industry, including Ian Anderson, Ben Mendelsohn, and Amanda Jones, had a meeting in London and decided to use the term world music to categorize the records that retailers had found difficult to classify and market. But here, you see the gentleman on the left is Ian Anderson, who is editor-in-chief of the magazine F. Bruce. He wrote that it wasn't a new name, just one of many that had floated around in preceding decades. But the logic set out by Roger Armstrong was that an established, unified, generic name would give retailers a place where they could confidently grab otherwise unstockable releases, and where customers might both search out items they'd heard on the radio, not knowing how to spell a mispronounced or misremembered name or title, and browse through wider catalog. World music seemed to include the most and amid the least, and got it on a show of hands. As we can see, the music industry doesn't give world music a clear definition. Rather, the industry takes a pragmatic attitude and takes under the umbrella term various music styles. And different from most other genres, world music is named in a geographic sense, but more of a cultural geographic sense, which endows it with certain ambiguities and flexibilities. According to the Rough Guide to world music deals with the oldest and newest music in the world, from centuries-old traditions to contemporary fusions. It includes the most sacred and profound music, and the most frivolous and risque, music of healing, music of protest, the loudest music you will ever hear, the softest and most intimate, and maybe also the most moving and enjoyable. So what kind of music is that? I'm not sure. This is a very literary description of world music. And then the F. Bruce magazine's description of world music is local music from out there, while the Songlines magazine calls world music someone else's local music. A clearer definition was given by the Grammy in 1992 when it started the award for Best World Music Album and announced that it was reserved for international performers exhibiting non-European indigenous traditions. Following the 45th Grammy Awards in 2003, the award was split into two separate categories. Best Traditional World Music Album, which includes non-Western classical music, international non-American and non-British traditional folk music, and Best Contemporary World Music Album, which includes world beat, world jazz, world pop, and cross-cultural music with contemporary production techniques. But in 2002, the two categories were merged back to the Best World Music Album, which is intended for traditional or contemporary recordings of non-Western classical music, international, non-American, and non-British traditional folk music, and recordings that may combine musical elements indigenous to a culture or country with additional elements of another culture. Now let's take a look at the compilation CD of Chinese music made in the European context of world music. This is a CD released by the Rough Guide. It's called the Rough Guide to the Music of China, released by the UK-based record label World Music Network. In this CD, there are traditional instrumental works, old Shanghai pop songs, a patriotic song from the Mao era, contemporary minority music, and electronica with samples of melodies of Chinese songs. So there is a little bit of everything in it. And I've shown the CD to some of my friends in China, and they all think it's very funny because it contains such disparate repertories that listeners of some of the songs will never listen to some of the others. And we can listen to some tracks from the CD. Let's first hear Guo Lanying's My Motherland, which was written for 1956 film about the Korean War. This is a song that my parents' generation they used to listen to, and they all can sing it. But I think nobody in China would call it world music. So it's a totally difference in the perspective of seeing the music. And now let's listen to another track. This is a song called The Tide, It Knows Not Why. It's by Xie Tianxiao, who is a very famous rock musician. And it's interesting that in this song, he combines the rhythm of the reggae music with his playing of the traditional Chinese instrument guzheng, and it's quite popular in China. And also, I played it to some of my foreign friends. They also they think it's very interesting. Let's hear it. 潮落
入睡，这一定是上天的恩惠。你总是说一切其实都无所谓，你总是说，就像浪潮起潮落，是什么都不为。潮起潮落，是什么都不为。还记得转来。
It's interesting to know that Xie Tianxiao is one of the top rock musicians in China. He has headlined many festivals in China, but usually at rock or pop festivals, never at a world music festival. Again, I think is the concept of world music is very much related to the context of music and how you look at it. So what does world music mean in China? The Chinese translation of world music, 世界音乐, appeared around the early 1990s. One of the first times it was used was in Chinese articles that introduced Paul Simon's album Graceland, which is a mixture of pop, a cappella, rock, and South African styles. And one of the first Chinese recordings marketed as world music was Dadawa's Sister Drums, made with inspirations from Tibetan music and released in 1995. The album sold millions of copies. The term world music became more popular in China since 2000, with the dissemination of world music works through the internet. Douban.com is a very popular Chinese social networking service website. It has more than 50 million registered users, and there is a section for world music. In this section, you can find more than 1,000 musicians or groups categorized as world music artists. Among them are fusion artists like Dadawa, but there are also minority performers of traditional music, contemporary Chinese folk singers, avant-garde pianists, Chinese tabla players, and the Shanghai Chinese Orchestra. The monthly content of works included in the world music section of Douban.com reflects the ambiguity of the term in China. Traditional Chinese music is called world music in the West-dominated music industry because it is the music of the other. But while in China it is the music of ourselves. But since most users of Douban.com are educated youths, they seem to have accepted the Western concept of world music as non-Western music when they classify traditional Chinese music as world music. The concept of world music in the Western world has already caused confusion. When the term is used in China, it becomes even more ambiguous because of the difference in context. But with the ambiguity comes certain flexibilities which can be appropriated by different players to serve different purposes. These are some of the Chinese albums marketed as world music. If world music in the West involves a mix of familiarity and otherness, there is a similar process of China in the making of music that is arguably called world music. And for Chinese world music artists, China's ethnic minorities are the most convenient other. For example, Dadawa's album Sister Drum is composed with Tibetan music idioms and cultural symbols. In Moonrise, her latest album, which was released in December last year, she used samples of music from not only the Tibetan but various ethnic groups such as the Uyghur, Mongolian, Miao, and Dong. The birth and growth of world music happened at a time when the cultural sector of China is transforming from a governmental agenda to a market-oriented industry. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, the government has established many art troupes to perform works adapted from traditional music of different ethnic groups. Famous singer Caidan Zhuoma, who was active in the 1950s and 60s, is known for singing traditional Tibetan folk songs with new lyrics that pay tribute to Chen Mao. In comparison, Dadawa's music focuses on the mysticism of Tibet, which met the Han Chinese people's romantic imagination of the region in the 1990s. And we can again make some comparison. Let's first see a video of Caidan Zhonga. This is an excerpt from a film, a very famous film from the 1950s or 60s called "The East is Red." This is actually a very important film if you want to study art and propaganda. You can look for it probably on YouTube. You can find it. And now let's see another representation of minority music. This is from Dadawa's Sister Drum, which was made in the 1990s. these are some different representations of minority music in China that serve different goals, but not satisfied with being used just as tools or spices in music. A growing number of minority musicians with contemporary musical ideas have also begun to create their own world music. Examples include Marmor, an ethnic Kazakh musician who plays contemporary renditions of traditional songs, and Hangai, a Mongolian group that blends instruments like top shore with electric guitar. This is a concert that I curated for the Hong Kong Arts Festival of these two groups, and both of them have performed at many international festivals. The minority musicians who are quite marginal in the Chinese language-dominated music market of China have received more attention after they've represented China to perform at international festivals and released CDs overseas. But sometimes their music is compromised by producers to appeal to the market. And Marmor has released a CD titled Eagle with the UK label Real World, whose producer blended Marmor's otherness with the familiarity of Western pop music in a way that Marmor himself doesn't like. We can compare two versions of Marmor's the same song by Marmor called Man. Let's first listen to his original version. Backing vocals and some reverb, which makes it a little more sweet and soft. So I think maybe usually we can call the first version folk music, while the second world music. I mean, it represents the typical image of world music from a Western point of view. But again, world music is just, for me, I think it's mostly a marketing device, so you can put whatever you want to call world music in it. And from these two examples, I think we can see that how commodified world music is made for a particular market. And in a way, the development of world music in China arouses people's interest in music of the minority people, which is indeed a treasure house that deserves more study. A recent example is Dadawa's Moonrise, which is a double CD album consisting of one disc of Dadawa's works and another disc of 24 songs that she recorded during her field trip to remote areas of Xinjiang, Tibet, Yunnan, and Guizhou. You can hear the title song Moonrise first, and then turn to another track in the other CD to listen to the original version of the Miao folk song If You Were a Flower, a sample of which is used in Moonrise. Likewise, you can compare the original recording of Nachu love song to the use of a sample in the track in this live. I like this album because it both documents China's folk songs and presents Dadawa's own works inspired by them. It has educational meanings for China's world music artists as well as the general public. Dadawa recorded some 1,000 songs during her 4-month trip to document folk music. She plans to publicize them for people to hear and for musicians to work with. Diverse ethnicities and thousands of years of history bestow on China many rich folk music traditions. Yet most of them are not part of contemporary life, simply because people don't have the opportunities to hear them. And now the rise of world music in China will hopefully turn more people's eyes to the rich music traditions of their country and to better preserve those music. So far I have talked mostly about musicians who are either from minority backgrounds or whose works are influenced by minority music. But as world music develops in China, more Han Chinese musicians are also inspired to draw from their traditions and mix it with other music languages. For example, Da Wang Gang, which is a project founded by Han musician Song Yuzhe, has recently raised some international attention. Their CD, Wild Tune Street Rhythm, ranked number 6 at the World Music Charts Europe last year and won the German Records Critics Award. The group also performed at some major music festivals such as WOMAD and Roskilde. In a comment about Da Wang Gang's CD, the UK newspaper Guardian says, "This is one of the strangest, most oddly compelling albums of the year." The title means Wild Tunes Street Rhythm, a term used in Chinese opera to refer to music that is slightly out of tune and rhythm, and at first listening it may seem dominated by discordant effects that disguise the melodies, stomping rhythms, and eerie soundscapes. The man behind this experiment in new acoustic Chinese music is Song Yuzhe, a one-time alternative rocker who traveled across China studying traditional styles and has set out to mix opera structures with folk songs. And unlike most previous Chinese world music CDs released in Europe, Wild Tune Street Rhythm is not produced by Western producers, but by Song himself. So when the CD was released in Germany, by the German company Yarrow, all the tracks are exactly the same as they were released in China. They only differ in the cover design. We can listen to a little bit of one track from the album called this song because Song Yuzhe himself is very interested in Taoist music. You can hear some influences from Taoist music in this song. The most important factor in the development of world music in China is probably world music festivals. These are some of the major world music festivals in China. World Music Shanghai, Xintiandi World Music Festival, Snow Mountain Music Festival, and MoMA Post Mountain Music Art Festival. I've worked with all of these festivals as either manager of bands or music director of the festival. The first music festival in China, World Music Festival in China is the World Music Shanghai, which started in 2008. It was supported by the Shanghai municipal government, which saw the concept of world music as according with the image of Shanghai as an international metropolis. Thus, it sponsored the festival as one of the events to celebrate the 2010 Shanghai World Expo. And at this festival, you can see both traditional groups, such as the whirling dervishes of Damascus and the Pakistani Qawwali singer Asif Ali Khan. There were also fusion groups like Deep Forest from France and the Shuan Synchro System from the UK. Among the Chinese lineups, there were also both traditional and fusion groups. The former includes Soul of Dolan, a Uyghur group that plays the Dolan Mukam, and the Dong singers that perform the polyphonic folk songs of the Dong ethnic group. And examples of the fusion groups are Han Gai and the avant-garde composer singer Liu Suola. And as music director, I curated the MoMA Post Mountain Music Art Festival in Beijing last year. The program also included both traditional and fusion groups. For example, this is a traditional shadow puppetry group from northeastern China. And we also have Parnogras, which is a gypsy band from Hungary. And Yogyakarta dance group, which played gamelan, in Indonesian gamelan music. Xinxin Nanguan ensemble played Nanguan, which is southern classical music from southern China. And Japanese shakuhachi music, Cambodian pimpit music, the Bao of Gango, which is a group of Bao, which is kind of mendicant mystic singers. Wang Li, who is a Chinese musician who innovates with instruments such as Jew's harp and calabash flute. And this is a concert of Iranian drummer Muhammad Reza Mahzavi. This is a collaboration between electronic musician Carl Stone and guqin player Wu Na. One thing to know is that many festivals in China have been made possible with the sponsorship of real estate companies. For example, the Xintiandi World Music Festival is supported by the Shuinan Group. The festival is named after the company's property, where the performances are held. The MoMA Post Mountain Music Art Festival is also sponsored by a real estate developer called MoMA. And these companies support music festivals so that they can promote their brands through media coverage. Xintiandi is a trendy area in Shanghai with bars, restaurants, and so on. The developer sees world music as something unique and novel that can upgrade the image of their commercial land. All performances of the festival were held in the square inside the property, and admission was free. So far, I have talked about some different representations of world music in China. So what does world music mean in the Chinese context? I have tried to sum up the following types of music which are regarded as world music in China. First, since China doesn't have a big record industry of world music, the CDs of Western labels have been very influential in Chinese people's understanding of the genre. Traditional music from non-Western countries and fusion of non-Western music with Western pop are still the dominant image of world music to the Chinese audience. Second, some Chinese musicians and producers have been working to produce a more Chinese contextualized world music, which includes works made on the basis of fusion of traditional and contemporary Chinese music and hybrids of Chinese music and music of other non-Western traditions. Third, traditional Chinese music, especially that of ethnic minorities, is also regarded as world music when presented at international contexts such as that of world music festivals in China. I want to play a little bit of this sample by the Dong singers from southwestern China, because they perform kind of polyphonic singing, which is very beautiful. And I produced this concert for them in Shanghai. This is, I think, a very unique traditional music style from China. In recent years, some Chinese popular musicians have tried to work with traditional musicians like this, and some are successful, some are not so successful. But I think it is a very positive trend, because in the past, Chinese popular music has been very much influenced by Western popular music. But now, by combining Chinese roots music, the Chinese popular musicians are trying to create something more unique, and I hope that there will be more experiments like this. So the fourth, I argue that music styles indigenous to Western countries can also be seen as world music. That is from a Chinese perspective. And I think this has to do with the meaning of the term world. Let's take a look at two world maps. First is from Europe. The second one will be from China. And as you can see, I think probably this is also a common world map used in the US. As you can see from this map, Europe is placed in the center of of the map. But if we see this map produced in China, China and Asia is placed in the middle. So although it's the same world, people tend to see it differently. So that is also the reason why people see different. People have there are different meanings for the term world music in different areas. And the last, there is some new music happening in China, which I think can also be called world music. For example, in the southern Chinese metropolis Guangzhou, where there is a big African trader community, a scene of African music is coming into being. These African musicians perform various styles, including high life, dancehall, and rhythm and blues at local clubs. And also, hip hop is becoming more popular in China. There are not only Han musicians who rap in Mandarin and various Chinese dialects, but also minority musicians who use their native languages, such as Korean or Mongolian, to create their own works. For me, these are all musics that can be presented at world music festivals in China. And I believe world music is not only an exotic genre of entertainment, but also something that can help us to better understand others and see ourselves. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much, and I look forward to questions and discussions. Thank you.
We have some time for questions, but those who have to go, feel free to go. But if you have time, or if you want to ask questions, go ahead.
What does the role of the Silk Road Project and Ma Yo-Yo have in world music? Is it part of that, or is it something different?
I think that is also very interesting and important because as a renowned classical musician, Yo-Yo Ma plays with these folk musicians, and I believe it's a very good way to promote different musical traditions from around the world. And I think for this presentation, I talked mostly about the work of popular musicians who try to combine with folk music. But Yo-Yo Ma represents another kind of efforts, and I admire him for doing that, and I hope more classical musicians will do similar kinds of work.
Could I just share a comment? I'm a musician, I live in China, and I've worked with many Chinese musicians, and just to share, I think, you commented that, it's your hope that Western musicians can kind of learn more from working with them, and I certainly have. One thing that Western musicians tend to be from our training, we're addicted to groove music. It's what we're very used to, and it means basically a predictable beat in all of our pop music and everything. And many Chinese musicians, they don't have that in their training, and to work with them, a Western musician often learns not to be quite so addicted to a perfect beat, but rather let the music flow a little bit more in time. And it's very exciting for a Western musician, I think, to learn this from working with Chinese.
Yeah. In traditional folk music, sometimes you find a very free rhythm. Sometimes it's not metered, and sometimes, like the example of the Kazakh song, there are changes in the beats in the song. Sometimes it's 8th beat, sometimes it's 7th, so it's quite different. And I think that's very interesting. Yes, but I hope you will work with more Chinese musicians.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for your talk. It's fascinating. And I really appreciate the two maps putting into a very visual context the the distinction, the contrast in perspective depending on where you are in the world. I was very intrigued to hear you bring in the term roots music towards the end of your talk. And I'd be very interested to hear your thinking about that term, which is much more recent than world music, and how that may or may not be playing out in China and in the world music context in China, because it has become a very kind of, I would say, important marketing label for some sectors in the United States. So do you have any thoughts about whether that term has any traction in China yet?
I think last year there was a music festival in Hunan province in China, which promoted itself as the first roots music festival in China. I'm not sure about their idea, but yeah, I think roots music is actually a term that I think is probably clearer in some ways compared to world music, but also there's a lot to discuss about what roots music means. But it has a connection to, for example, in world music you have a very different style. Some is traditional, some is fusion. But what is traditional music? It's hard to define. What about a music that has been developed in the last 50 years? Do you call that traditional music or new music? For me, I have a personal way of defining traditional music or roots music. Maybe not so much about roots music, but traditional music. For me, traditional music is something that was created before the invention of modern communication technologies, like the invention of recording devices. Because for me that is something that changed the way of musical or cultural exchange dramatically, and after that cultural exchange and maybe borrowing of musical idioms or languages from another culture became much more easily. But this is just my way of seeing it. For roots music, I think it's something that is very good at arousing people's interest in music from the past, which is I think very important for China, because in China, although we have such a long history and we have very diverse ethnicities, there are not many means for people nowadays to access traditional folk music. There is no public sound archives which people can access, and not many companies are interested in releasing records of traditional music. And although I am not sure what that music festival in China sees as roots music, but I hope this idea of roots music will be talked about more, so that it can arouse more people's attention to their traditions. Thank you for your comments.
As far as recordings of Chinese minority music and Tibetan music, what kind of intended or unintended effects are there in regard to raising political awareness of minority rights issues and support for them?
Well, not so much in direct ways, because it's hard to perform a protest song in China. But I think in recent years, it's interesting because I have some minority musician friends who are in their 20s or 30s, and compared to their fathers or parents' generation, now they are paying more attention to their ethnic tradition and their culture. So many of these young minority musicians are trying to study their language and their music, and trying to perform their own music and develop their own musical language. And that is, I think that represents efforts by this young generation minority people to search for cultural identity in China, especially in globalized era and in modern time. And so you can find, for example, I guess many more songs in minority languages nowadays than 20 years ago. And in Beijing you can even find a Mongolian music festival where all Mongolian bands in Beijing or from Inner Mongolia come to play. So they play heavy metal, hip hop, but all in Mongolian language. I think that is something very interesting. Thanks.
I have a quick question, and who are the main audience for those world music in China? I ask this question because myself, as a Chinese student originally from mainland China, I went to the Beijing University to see the world music festival myself. But I can see the
Which one?
It's the fingerstyle guitar festival held in Beijing University, the Baiyanjiangtang. And I can see the audience, they are very, interested in this kind of music. But I don't think they are the high educated students, the people in China, but there are not so many of them in China. So I was wondering, in your opinion, how can Chinese musicians attract more attention to this kind of music? Because university definitely is a good way to promote this kind of music. So what's your opinion?
Yeah, surely. I think in universities, people tend to be more open-minded, and they tend to like music styles they haven't heard before. But also, in general, I think the audiences for these world music festivals in China are mostly well-educated, well-traveled, young or middle-aged people. And I think that's probably true also here. Because when you travel, you see different cultures, and you tend to be interested in different music. So a lot of people, I believe, they have, for example, they have traveled to Inner Mongolia or Mongolia, and they tend to have a deeper interest in Mongolian music than people who haven't been there. Yeah, I think as now more and more people like to travel in China, not only in China but also overseas. I think that is probably a good sign for the development of world music in China.
one more, two more? Anyone? Well, if not, then maybe we'll close up and thank you, Qian, for musically and intellectually.
Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to talk to you in private. Okay.